Kia ora, this is Jess, and I am going to talk you through how I lesson plan today. So, I generally use unit plans as my basis for everything I do. This may look completely different depending on what you do, but this is how I choose to do it. So the first thing I do, this is a level 3 standard. I start looking at what kind of things I have to do in order to make the students have the right support in order to make them successful in that standard. So the first thing I do is I go to the NZQA website and find the standard that they will be sitting. The standard has lots of really interesting and important information like the level, the credits, the short version of the name, and most importantly, the criteria that each student has to meet in order to pass the standard. It's set out into different sections. So the first section right at the top of the page where it says 2 and then that section of bullet points refers to all of the achieved level information. This section, the next paragraph down, talks about all of the merit criteria, and the final section talks about the excellence criteria. This is going to look different to what a unit standard would look like, but achievement standards are generally set out in this way, in this learning area. After our criteria, there are kind of some explanatory notes below it, and these can help to explain what different things could be part of the standard. If we come down to number 6, for example, it tells us that this standard at level 3 is about complex procedures. These bullet points give us some ideas about what some complex procedures could look like. This isn't entirely an entire list of everything it could look like, but here are some examples. What I'm going to do is go back to my unit plan now. So what I do is I just first take apart the standard and put it in a table at the top of my unit plan so I know exactly what I need to do. The first section, 2.1 through 2.6, are all achieved level criteria, so I just put them in as their numbers. 2.7 and 2.8 are merit level, so they are 2.7M. 2.9 and 2.10 are excellence level criteria, so I put them in as 2.9E. These will become important later on when you see how I do this. Next, I've just got some additional little things that I can make sure that I need to cover in order to make sure that my students are meeting the standard. And below that, I finally just have some more explanatory notes that might be useful to have. Now we come down to the main section of my unit plan. This is where I start to separate out the learning components of the standard into different little sections. I usually organise them by learning intentions and then success criteria, and then those can then be turned into lessons or a series of lessons depending on how much work is needed in order to get those students up to the correct level. If we have a look, for example, at we are learning to classify data by its type, we have 4 different success criteria in that bracket. Now this can change depending on how it is. Unit plans for me are a very fluid working document that I'm consistently changing and modifying as things happen. So, if we have a look in this middle column here where it's got 2.1, 2.4, 2.5, these are all different things that that relate specifically to the standard. So if we come back up to the standard here, 2.5, 2.4 and 2.6 all relate to data integrity and data permissions and choosing correct data. So these are all ways that each of these success criteria and learning intentions are tying back into the standard to make sure that even though we're working on creating amazing, engaging lessons, we are also still meeting the criteria of what we need to teach. The 4th column along from the left is just giving me some ideas about different ways that I have implemented this in the past and different learning activities that I could try. And the final column is going to include any other extra information that I need to make sure I remember, or something that doesn't fit in the rest of the columns. This is very much a working document, and this is the only way that I personally do it. Lots of people have different ways of unit planning for themselves, but this is what I find works really well for me. So take what you will from this, but I hope you enjoyed my little walkthrough. Thank you.